Okay, can we call the meeting to order with a pledge of allegiance, please? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening and welcome to the August meeting of the Greencastle School Board. First item on the agenda is adjustments to the agenda, Mr. Gibbon.
Yep, I actually do not have any adjustments to the agenda.
Okay. Hearing none. Next item on the agenda is public comments regarding agenda items. Does anyone have any comments regarding the agenda items? Okay. Hearing none. Next item, recognitions, Mr. Gibney.
Yep, so next month we'll begin recognizing our students of the month during our board meeting. So we'll be recognizing the August students in September. So we don't have any students of the month to honor this month, but I would just like to give my thanks to all of our staff members for a great start to the year. Certainly many different changes with just people moving into our newly constructed spaces and adjusting to some new staff and new staff members adjusting. I just feel like the start of the year has been very smooth, and I appreciate everyone's help with that. And then Becky has
I have some
recognition
yes,
as well.
some specific recognitions. So as Mr. Gibney said, we've implemented a lot of new programs, and one of those is our DIBELS assessment in our K-5. They use our DIBELS to inform the reading instruction and to assess the students' reading skills. This is a daunting task for our teachers. So this year, our title teachers and our special education teachers took on this task for them. So I'd really just like to publicly thank Jill Gooch, Shauna Werman, Kara Hazlett, Heather Miller, Meredith B., Kate Chassie, and Dawn Batten for taking that on. It really helped the teachers so much, and we really appreciate it. So I appreciate them. And then our second recognition is I'm excited to announce that one of our middle school math teachers, Whitney Reeder, was accepted into the state of Indiana's Level Up Leadership Program. This is a competitive program in which educators across the state had to apply to join, and it's an opportunity for emerging leaders to engage in innovative and relevant professional development in order to level up the leadership capacity of all the educators across the state. So we are excited for her to learn from this new experience and use it to positively impact Greencastle Community Schools. So, and Whitney is here. So we just want to wave, Whitney. If I could borrow Mrs. Clements and Mrs. Reeder, and we can go this way and we get your picture. So. Sorry.
Nice recognitions for this month. That's pretty cool.
There you go.
Congratulations.
Yes, congratulations. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the consent agenda, which consists of special meeting minutes from July 17th, 2023, executive meeting minutes from July 24th, 2023, and regular meeting minutes from July 24th, 2023. Allowance of claims, the financial report, and the personnel reports, parts 1 and 2, which are posted on the door and listed on the website. Mrs. Roll.
Yes, hello. And of course, in your finance packet, you're going to have the two regular payrolls that we had in July. One was dated July 7th for a total payroll of $373,445.06. Along with that came the the accounts payable for taxes and retirement. Total for the July 7th payroll, $111,499.18. Then the second regular payroll for July was dated the 21st for a total payroll of $363,350.86. Retirement and taxes on that payroll, $108,426.42. Next in your packet, you're going to have a list of prepays for July 2023. There were a couple of unusual ones. We twice a year, as you know, do have pension payments and debt service payments. You'll see that on the first page, third one down, and then about halfway down, you'll see the 1.3, and that's for our debt service payments that we made in July. And then, of course, we always have a quarterly contribution to the corporation for VALIC. You'll see that on page 2 for the $67,336.64. And then there was a couple loose prepays that we had here, just helping the corporation out. We had some on page, I guess it's probably page 4 on this one. Total $4787.96. These were some payments that we had made for TZ, Old National Wealth Management, and Abbey Cole. Just they've had some trouble making some payments, so we went ahead and got that done. And by trouble, I mean they didn't have a treasurer at their building to sign any checks, so we just bailed them out. So just to kind of give you an idea why we were paying some stuff for TZ, that was why, and they reimbursed the corporation. That's very unusual. We just kind of made some things happen for them. And then the final big purchase in July prepay was for school buses. You saw the $261,810.89, and that would be for the school buses. Total prepays dated July 2023, $2,102,108.94. Did anyone have any questions about any of the prepays for July? Okay. Then next in your packet, you've got a list of claims that are dated today, and pending any questions. We've got total claims dated today, August 28th, $471,738.09. Did anyone have any questions about any of those?
Quite the washing machine.
Yes, and that was an unusual one. Thank you for picking that up, Mr. Cox. We did buy a big washing machine for the middle school, and that was a little over $17,000. Those are not cheap, but they do last a long time. So. Then next in your packet, you're going to see the fund report. Balance the end of July 2023 was $3,505,484.23. Operations balance was $1,563,196.38. If you head to the last page of the fund report, page 5 of 6, total on all funds is $8,517,386.43. Next in your packet, you're going to see the depository statement. You'll see that we are balanced out bank to fund. That's a good thing. We want to be there. And then on the fund transfer report, per usual, we have some transfers from one bank to another. That's where you'll see the bank 2 to bank 10. We had an old payroll account that had been open for quite some time, and the balance was very low in it. Our payrolls are actually processed very differently now and have been for quite some time. So I went ahead and made the decision to go ahead and close that account. We weren't paying any fees or anything like that, but we also weren't making any money on it. So there was really no point in maintaining it. So I went ahead and transferred that balance of $2,753.89 to Bank 10. You'll see that there. So total fund transfers for the month of July was $941,928.39. And then finally, in your finance packet, you're going to have the bond expenditures at the top. Expenditures for bond 2021. Balance forward was $22,138,474.27. The new expenditures for July 2023, you'll see there. So our total expenditures as of the end of July is $24,164,339.42. And then on bond 2022, our balance forward was $3,055,179. Our July expenditures took us to $3,652,126.97. And pending any questions, I'd like to submit for approval.
Those numbers just mean we're getting closer to being done.
We really are. Yeah, that's good, and it's a little scary too.
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Second. Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is reports, and the first from the GCTA.
Yeah, so something new that we're going to be doing throughout our district, throughout the year, is having a GCTA report just to highlight some of the great things taking place in our buildings, and that could be people, that could be programs, or students. So an opportunity to try that out.
For those that don't know, my name's Aaron Nance. I teach at Tezonicus. I am currently sitting on the GCPA as well. I've been teaching here in Greencastle for 5 going on to 6 years, and a couple things I did want to say regarding the union and our business here with Central Office. I'm happy to represent our GCPA talk here with the Greencastle School Board. I'm here today partially speaking on some remarks that have been made about our school, our teachers, our district as a whole. And having been here for the time I have been in Greencastle, I can say very confidently that a lot of what may have been talked about online or through other social media outlets, a lot of it I would say is more unfounded. I don't see a lot of the contentiousness and negativity that might have been spoken on. You know, part of the reason that I'm here is, yes, to recognize those people that have done good through our teachers and our union. But I also just want to recognize the work that all of us do to better our students and our community. I'd like to focus on what we do as opposed to what may be said. Kind of sticking to that. You know, one of the things that has been going very well and has gone well in the past is our negotiations between the GCPA and our administrators and school board. I've always felt that they've been very healthy, very productive, that they've always been something in the mutual interest of both parties involved. I've never really felt that anything was unfair or unspoken in those meetings. And that's always been greatly appreciated by our union, that direct business that we're able to hold. Another thing to point out would be the bargaining. That's always gone well in both ways' favor. I've been very happy with that. And let's see. It is the view of all the professionals that we have in GCTA and our district that we are here to better the children of our community through their education. Monthly discussions happen between union officials and administrators where any official business or issues can be discussed and worked out on a more personal level before anything else might be escalated. And that's one thing I can speak to as having participated in those with Lisa and some of our other union officials, that they're very useful. And the relationship that we're able to build as a union with our administrators, it's always for the betterment of our students. That's at least how I've always felt. The last thing that I wanted to say along the lines of our GCTA as of right now is we hold our administrators and board in high respect and that we are in support of the missions that they set out for us. The union would like to thank the board and our admins for their continued support through these years of service and for their continued support in the future as well. I think the only thing I'd like to add at the end of that is that as far as the beginning of this school year is gone and the feel that I would say I get from a lot of our teachers, at least at DZ, is an aura of positive. We see a lot of good that can come from the changes that are being made and from the traditions that we're upholding. And we hope that that good can continue here through the future as well. And hopefully when I come next month or when Aaron is speaking for us next month, that we can continue to have goodness to share.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next is the Assistant Superintendent report.
Okay. I'm just going to share a little bit about our professional development going on. We have a lot of new programs happening. So we've been really intentional this year with our professional development plans. So earlier this month, our middle school English teachers met with Carrie Rosebrock. She is a consultant, has worked with Brownsburg and some of the education service centers on understanding and diving into their iLearn data, and then also on how to intentionally plan writing into their lessons. And so she'll be meeting with them again in September to go over some of those assessments that they've already given the students to help drive that instruction to better meet our kids' needs. And then also our math teams. I know we've talked a lot about reading, but I don't want to forget about math. So our math teams in grades 3 through 12, so this is going all the way up to high school, we'll be partnering with Bill Reed, who is part of the Encompassing Education Group. Our high school teachers are actually meeting with him, I think, on Wednesday. And they're going to learn more about the digital PSAT and the SAT, and that's open to not only the math teachers, but all of the high school teachers to learn more about those. And then Bill will also be working with our 3rd through 8th grade math teams to understand our new standards that are getting implemented, and then how they relate to not only the lessons that we teach every day, but how to better prepare them for our state testings in the spring. Bill focuses a lot on developing higher order thinking questions and problem solving skills and how to incorporate these into their daily teaching. So I'm excited for the teachers to have this opportunity to learn and grow in their professions and how it will positively impact our students.
Thank you. Thank you. Next is the superintendent report, Mr. Gibney.
Yeah, so I'll be brief because I actually have a couple of lengthier items a little bit later on in the agenda. But just again, we had a great overall start to the year. On a more separate matter, we are working on getting the pool back up and running. If you remember, we had the leak, and that leak has been fixed, and so we're working on getting the pool filled back up and chemicals back in it so we can open up the pool again. And then a couple of weeks ago, the windstorm, severe weather, we've had to navigate a little bit of a challenge with our tennis courts because the wind has blown some of our fence posts over. And so we're working on a potential fix for those posts, as well as making some repairs to the surface of our tennis court. So we're meeting
Only
with...
like 5 years old?
Yeah. Yep. Some of the playing surface itself is peeling up. And when we make those adjustments to those posts, we're going to have to make some improvements to that. So working through that. And then the final thing is working through to identify what our ADM count is. And so I shared with the board previously that our budget was built on an ADM of 1,720 students, and we were sitting at roughly 1,740 students at the start of the school year. So that's up a little bit from last year, but we'll work to kind of see where that is because we've had some ins and outs since the start of the school year. So enrollment has been in a good place as well.
Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda is old business, and we have no old business. So next is new business. And the first thing under new business is a public hearing for the 2023 collective bargaining.
Yeah, so before we can begin official collective bargaining with the GCTA after September 15th, we actually have to hold a public hearing to allow the public to make any comments related to that process. So next slide, Corey. Next slide. So essentially the subjects of bargaining, salary, wages, and fringe benefits. Next slide. Prohibited subjects of collective bargaining. Those are all items that were formerly discussable. Those are the same items that we continue to discuss with the GCTA on a monthly basis. Next slide. Continue again. So there's the timeline for bargaining. So we can we can bargain informally prior to September 15th. And we're hosting our hearing tonight. And then after September 15th, that's when we begin formal bargaining. And then once we do reach an tentative agreement with the GCTA, we have to hold another hearing to discuss the terms of the tentative agreement. So discuss the terms of the collective or the agreed upon collective bargaining agreement. And then at least 72 hours after that is the earliest that the board could take action to ratify a collective bargaining agreement. All collective bargaining agreements are due by November 15th. Next slide. And there's just some additional other parameters that are kind of a part of the process. Next slide. And so now would be the time to allow the public to provide any testimony, but limiting it to collective bargaining.
So yes, I guess that now we will open the public hearing part of this, and anyone who wants to comment can. No one? Okay, then we will close the public hearing. Next item on the agenda is an approval request, permission to advertise the 2024 budget, the CPF plan, and the bus replacement plan.
Yep, so I'm gonna run through a few more slides. I'll be brief, because this is a similar presentation that we've shared in the past. Next slide, Corey. If you recall, these are our primary budgeted funds within the school district: the education fund, the operations fund, debt service fund, and the pension bond fund. Next slide. And then each of those funds has specific uses. For example, the education fund is used to pay for instructional related expenses, and that's funded from our state tuition support we receive from the DOE each month. And then we have the operations fund, so that's like our capital improvements, our building repairs, maintenance, and that's funded through a portion of a transfer from the education fund to the operations fund, in addition to our local property taxes. The debt service fund is obviously used to strictly do just that, repay outstanding debt, such as our current bond issues that we have, and that's funded through local property taxes. And then pension bond fund, the buyout from many years ago, the unfunded obligations, the retirement buyout. I think we pay off in 2024. But again, that's funded primarily through local property taxes, and specifically at Greencastle, we use our local income tax to pay that off. Next slide, please. And then, so in education, our state tuition support we receive from the DOE is based on 33 different variables that are attributed to several different count days throughout the year. So these next three slides. So part of it is our ADM count, count of students in categories with disabilities, count of students in different CTE programs. Next slide, please. All of those different factors help determine the funding that we receive from the DOE each month. And so when it comes to building the budget, we have to make educated guess or make our best guess and use estimates throughout the year. And that's also something we have to continue to pay attention as we navigate through the year, is if we have a decrease in students, then we potentially need to look at making some adjustments with our spending habits. Next slide, please. So FY24 state tuition support. So we budget on a calendar year, but we receive our funding based on a fiscal year from July 1 through June 30. And so this is our projected state tuition support. This has nothing to do with our local property tax dollars or anything like that. This is just what we receive from the DOE. And this is based on an estimated ADM count of 1,720 students. So we received the basic grant, the academic performance grant, special education grant, CTE grant, and then they've added an item, the non-English speaking grant, which they'll be pushing out funds in a different manner for that throughout the year. So you can see roughly $14.421 million for this next fiscal year. So we know that the Indiana General Assembly gave a significant, I think a significant increase for this first budget year, and then it tapers off a little bit in year 2. Next slide, please. And so just for comparison's sake, FY23 versus FY24, you can kind of see at the bottom. So it's between $700,000 and $750,000 increase over the fiscal year 24. Next slide, please. So also going along with building the budget, while we have to think of the immediate, we also have to think of the big picture, right? And we have to look at enrollment trends. We have to look at staffing levels, class sizes. We have to look at all of those different things, because the decisions we make today can have a long time negative impact on the overall fiscal health of the district. And just a few years ago, we had under $1 million in our general fund before it was called the education fund. And now we've been able to give staff nice increases, but also build back up a nice amount of cash cash reserves to where we're never in a position to where we might have to potentially borrow to make payroll. So you don't want to take two steps or one step forward and then two steps back. So next slide. So there's our budget preparation calendar. So actually Kelly and I met with the county council last week. I think it was last week. Tonight is our budget workshop and board approval to advertise the budget. And then you can see the upcoming important dates and deadlines as we continue to move forwards with the budget adoption process. And the county council is essentially the agency that approves our budget. Next slide. Just again showing ADM and how it has adjusted over time. Just good historical information. You can see that built this budget with the same ADM count as spring of last year. Next slide. Again, just since our budget is an 18-month spending plan and an 18-month revenue plan, you have to build it with several different assumptions because that is a long period of time where things can change for the better and sometimes for the worse. Next slide. And so moving on to the budget itself, you can see projected revenues for the next 18 months as well as expenditures for the next 18 months of the last 6 months of this year and the full 2024 calendar year. We don't advertise a levy or a rate in education fund because we receive those dollars directly from the DOE. Next slide. Our debt service fund, again, same thing. You can see the levy to be advertised, the rate to be advertised. Next slide. Pension debt, we don't advertise a levy or a rate because we use our local income tax dollars to pay our pension debt fund liabilities. Next slide. The operations fund, again, 18-month revenue plan, 18-month expenditure plan, and you can see the levy and the rate to be advertised. Next slide. The rainy day fund, again, we've been able to build up a cushion there. We will appropriate some funds out of rainy day, but hopefully we won't have to spend them. We don't receive any property tax dollars, and so we don't advertise a levy or rate for rainy day. Next slide. And again, these are just a bunch of different budget considerations as we work through this process. I won't read all of those items to you. Next slide. There's our rate and levy history. So one thing I would like to point out is on the left-hand side, you can see the advertised levies and rates. And on the far right-hand side, you can see what has been certified by the DLGF after our budget has been finalized. So our budget is built on roughly 85% of our assessed valuation. So therefore, the rates are advertised higher than they come back certified because when the AV goes up, your rate goes down to generate levies. And we also know that we have max levies for operations fund. And so we know that the DLGF is going to make some adjustments to that. So if you go to the next slide, there's what we're seeking permission to advertise for the 2024 budget, in addition to capital projects fund plan and the bus replacement plans, which are posted on our website. And so unless anybody has any questions, I would like to recommend the board provide approval to advertise the 2024 budget, CPF plan, and bus replacement plan.
I will make a motion to do so.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments? Okay, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Next item is an approval request for the 2023-2024 Safe School Plan.
Yeah, so as is customary with another start of the school year, our building administrators and Yolanda, who's our safety guru at GCSE, We've reviewed all of our safe school plans. Within the first 60 days, we have to certify that we've reviewed them, modified them if needed. And so we're just essentially taking board action to show that we've done just that. And I will certify to the IDU after that takes place.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the safe school plan. All in favor?
Right.
All opposed? Motion passes. Next item is an approval request for the 2023-24 occupational therapist contract with Solient Health.
Yep. So in order to continue to provide services to some of our students with special needs, Mrs. Sullivan has worked to identify a therapist to contract with, and essentially, in order to move forward with them, it requires board approval. And this is similar to what we've done in years past with some of those specialty type positions.
Well, I will trust Ms. Sullivan's recommendation and make a motion to approve.
Second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions, discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Next is an approval request for the teacher appreciation grants.
Yeah, so as is customary, again at the start of the school year, I think the deadline's by September 15th. We have to send in our teacher appreciation grant policy and our evaluation plan. We have not made any adjustments or any changes to that policy, but we have to annually approve this policy, and so it would be my recommendation that the board approve our teacher appreciation grant policy so that I can submit it.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions, discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is a revision to the 2023-24 academic calendar.
Yeah, so if you've been following the news media or reading the newspaper, some school districts have done this already. We chose to kind of wait and see a little bit. But with what the public is projecting with what's going to take place on solar eclipse day, essentially the timing of the eclipse being during dismissal and the extra amount of visitors that we expect in town. We just have a lot of safety concerns with holding school on that day and dismissing on time. And so have a modification here in the calendar. As it stands right now, we had a built-in snow makeup day on April 19th. And essentially what I would like to do is drop that off and make April 8th a solar eclipse day to where it is a day out of school. And we've been talking as an administrative team where we still feel like that we could work with our staff members to share activities for families to do on that day and to safely view the eclipse. And we've also looked into purchasing glasses so that students can view the eclipse safely from home. So this is what I think is in the best interest of our school district and kids, just to keep everyone safe.
Makes sense to me.
But, luckily, we have the police officer here on our board. What do you see coming?
I can tell you that we've already had meetings with the sheriff and some representatives from out of state who have seen this type of event in their state before, and they brought a lot of wisdom to us to plan for this. I've never seen this kind of thing before, so I can see it maybe becoming a mess here. And especially at the time, we're going to prepare and be ready for it. So it's just one of those things that we've never seen this. I don't know. It may be a good idea to plan ahead and look for this kind of thing.
from a safety standpoint, so like in a perfect world, I wish we could just sit back and say, you know what, let's keep our kids for an extra hour. Let's invite the community out. Let's really enjoy this. Let's make this a learning opportunity. But I also know that it's not just kids getting on buses and getting them home. It's the high school kids trying to get home during the middle of all this. My fear is that the kids are going to be sitting at home on their phones and they're not going to see a thing of it. And we're going to miss a great learning opportunity. But I understand there's a safety side of it too. So I guess that's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, well, I think it's probably best to prepare for and take the day out. Say, well, maybe we didn't need to do that after all, then opposed to not and saying, well, we should have. So
It might be a cloudy day.
It is Indiana.
Okay, well, can I get a motion to approve?
I'll motion to approve.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion, questions? Okay, next item on the agenda is the 2023 appointment to the Putnam County Library Board for a 4-year term. That term expired, I heard, in January, or excuse me, July.
Yes.
So we need to appoint someone.
Yep. And it'd be my recommendation that we reappoint Mrs. Green, Shannon Green, to that position.
Okay.
Makes good sense. I will make a motion that she is a representative.
Second. Okay, a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Next is an approval request for some athletic corporate sponsors. I'm going to read all at once, or we'll approve all at once. And each of these is for $1,500 sponsorship. One from York Chevrolet Buick GMC, Greencastle Pediatric Dentistry, McDonald's, Dave's Heating and Cooling, Hassler Trucking, Epic Insurance Epic Insurance Midwest, Putnam County Health Department, and Edwards Royal Comfort Heating and Air. Again, each of those sponsorships is for $1,500. So, can I get a motion to approve? I make a motion. Approve.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any discussion? Other than thank you.
Yeah, it's big. Thank you.
No, thank you, everybody.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Next item is an approval request for 2 donations. One from the Indiana Association of School Principals Incorporated to Greencastle High School in the amount of $600. The second from the American Legion Post 58 to Greencastle High School softball in the amount of $500. Can I get a motion to approve the 2 donations?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second that gladly.
Yes. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Next is the first reading of the GCXE Foundational Statements 2023 through 2026.
Yeah, so just to kind of highlight our work and chime in where I'm missing. We've been spending about the last year working with Dr. Balch from ISU on just revisiting our mission, vision, core beliefs, our values, essentially to work on developing our strategic plan for Greencastle School District. And so we've had 5 or 6 meetings over the past year to where we really talked about and had a lot of good discussions on what it means to be a Greencastle Tiger Cub. Because we believe that we need to essentially kind of set the foundation or set the direction for the future of our school district to help drive our priorities and our strategic plan. And so now we've reached the moment in time to where it's needed for the board, to have first reading on these foundational statements to eventually to where we adopt them, and then we move into our priorities and our goal setting with staff. So A couple of our buildings have already had some conversations with their teachers already to help us identify potentially what some of those goals might be. So that way because the students are at the core of what we do each and every day. But it can include things such as, supporting teacher growth and retention.
Looking at how we're supporting like student mental health. We know that that's been an issue for the last couple of years, especially since COVID. So that's becoming a priority for us. Fiscal responsibility, not only for our facilities, but also instructionally and for our teachers and students.
The co and extracurricular
Yes.
programming that we have at Greencastle, because that's a strength. But working through all of those things and identifying some goals that we can work to kind of stretch ourselves and help grow the district and help us move forward. So essentially, there's no action this month, but those are for first reading.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for working on that.
Next item is a first reading of a bunch of Neola policies.
Yeah, so all of those different policies are listed for first reading. So again, no action being taken tonight, but those will be on the agenda for second reading and adoption next month. All of those policies are in your packet.
Anybody have any questions or comments on any of them? No? Good. All right, good enough. Next item on the agenda is other business. Does anyone have any other business?
I was going to ask Mr. Rogers. I know he's working on trying to get more of a fan base at our games, and I just want to know how it was going.
Well, it's going well. I don't know that I'm doing anything. I had a group of students come to me. It's all awesome. We were in high school. We met just right before school. Senior led, and that then grew to about 15 kids. They wanted all representation, freshmen all the way up. So they're just trying to generate like a cheer box, signing thing. So in our first game, I counted 107. As I could do on that count. Which is a lot. And if you throw in the fact that we have over 50 some odd of our band, that people seem to forget is not part of the cheer box. That's over 150 some odd kids. And then if you count the athletes that are inside the stadium, that was over 240 students, so 512. So over 50% of our students were there Friday night. It was class like that. The other Friday night was in that hot, but I digress. They got some really interesting ideas. We're going to meet again this week. It used to be, remember, first hour started at 8 o'clock. That's now a 0 hour. So we need to design a t-shirt. So hopefully more to come there. And one of the things that they really wanted to do is try to provide a lower cost for students. And so really what we developed was if you get into this cheer block by trying to do some of these things in the morning, you get free student pass to all the events. So we gave out, 50 free tickets for the first game. Not all of us got leaders. That's okay. We still gave them out. We still have a whole lot of upperclassmen that show up more for the game than in the morning. But I think it's really neat what they're trying to do. So we'll see what West Indigo this Friday. We had more kids ask, are we still going to do this in the morning? We still going to do this in the morning. All that good. So we're going to get to the free passes this week. And like I said, some more exciting things to come. And stay over that top of the game on the road.
And I think we're sending a fan bus to
They
that.
have an idea for that as well. Because we know about those hand class. All the students.
Good. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any other business? Okay, next item on the agenda is adjournment.
I make a motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Oh, thank you all for coming, and we will see you next month.